Hi, it's Sue from Aging Joyfully, and I am not aging joyfully this week. Last week was one of the worst weeks in my life. It was a really, really, really bad week. The most horrendous thing that happened was my cousin passed away at the age of 60. 60. She had breast cancer that metastasized throughout her body. I don't know her whole story. Um, the bits and pieces I know is she started one breast, and I think it was maybe 30 years ago. I don't really know approximately when she first got it. But I know her mother and aunt and grandmother all had it. They carried the gene for breast cancer. So she had a lumpectomy with the first one, and then I know with the second breast, when it spread years later, that she had an implant because recently she said they had to take out the implant. The last year of her life sounds like it was pure hell, just pure hell. Her cancer, I don't know the whole story. I just know about a year and a half ago it spread to her brain. Her brain, I think her liver, her spine. She got to the point where she couldn't walk because it was on her spine. She got a motorized wheelchair and she bought a new van with a ramp. She could barely see or hear. She volunteered for a medical study in the very end, an experimental treatment. And I asked her, I was just curious, is that free? Because a lot of cancers bankrupt families, and I'm thinking this might very well bankrupt her family. She said, no, you have to pay for this study. You still have to pay. She'd been fired twice from jobs for missing too much time for being sick. It was just hell, just absolute hell, what she went through. My father died from cancer, but his was relatively quick and he didn't go through what she went through. I mean, in the end, she was having surgery quite frequently on her brain, and then she had that breast implant removed. She had a cataract in her eye worked on. She was going for surgeries when she was way, way, way too weak, and I just remember thinking, well, I wouldn't want to go through that. I really wouldn't. I, at the same time, was just diagnosed with my illness, which is a chronic, debilitating neurological illness, which is so rare, it's 1%, and most doctors don't know about it. So while I had been misdiagnosed for 15 years, and finally it started to get worse. I fell in October, and I don't know, I guess that it probably started getting worse after I fell. I don't know what happened, but I struggle with walking outside. I've heard people with lupus or MS might have this same issue. People don't believe that you have a problem when you can walk inside a house and then go outside and all of a sudden you can't walk anymore. I don't understand it myself. But Steve found a neurologist, and he had pretty good openings, which should have been a red flag because I'm learning that neurologists don't have openings. So we got in pretty quickly, except that it did get postponed because it snowed when I was supposed to go in, and they postponed it. Well, I think I did it for 2 weeks because I was also having my yearly physical at the same time. And I don't know, I had lost faith in doctors. I had been to so many in the last 15 years. I've never been to a neurologist I know of, but I had a CAT scan 8 years ago, and I had an MRI when I was pregnant with our first child, and they told me those were both normal. So I had lost faith. And I also had a CAT scan 2 years ago, and that was at the ER. And they told me at the time it might be Chiari's and sent me to a neurosurgeon, and the neurosurgeon told me I did not have Chiari's. And I just figured that I was misdiagnosed again. Took his word, being a neurosurgeon, I took his word for it. Well, so we get to this neurologist, and his office is old, outdated. It looked like it was 1990 in his office. It was It had thin carpet and a rug with fringe on it. And I remember thinking, because my mother had fallen a lot in her late 50s and 60s, I thought, okay, you've got a tripping hazard in a neurologist's office. They had a clock that hadn't been changed with the last time change. That was before this March time change, so it was an hour ahead. They had a lot of books, and I'm thinking, well, if you're seeing a neurologist, first of all, who's going to have time to read books? But often you have vision problems. And I wasn't really impressed with the office. So anyway, we talked to him, and we're going through, nobody really cares when you say you're unbalanced. But when you say you fall, then they get a little interested. And I said how the ER thought it was Chiari's. And I said, but I was misdiagnosed. And he said, they don't just throw out Chiari's. Radiologists read thousands of MRIs. There were CAT scans. It was a CAT scan. So I think it probably is Chiari's. So he said, but you need an MRI to know for sure. So he sent me for an MRI. And they sent the results to me, and it was Chiari's. But I had to go back to him to discuss it. And when I went back to him, the first visit, he said, if it is Chiari's, you want to have surgery because you're going to go from walking with a cane to a walker to a wheelchair to not being able to eat. So you're going to want to do the surgery. The second visit, the baseline measurement it's where the situation is where your brain grew outside your skull. So your skull didn't get enclosed. So back here, your brain went into your spinal column. And mine pushes down, and it has to be at least 5 millimeters or greater to be considered Chiari's, and mine is right at 5 millimeters. So I walked in with a cane, and he shook his head and said, we need to get rid of that. And then he said he couldn't read the report, so I gave him my report that I had printed. And he just acted so odd. I had a lot of questions, and he'd say, I don't know, like, why are you asking me? Why are you asking me? Like, I said, what do I do from this point? He goes, I wouldn't do surgery. And I'm thinking, last time you told me you would do surgery, but now you're telling me you wouldn't do surgery. Didn't say why. And I said, well, how do I manage it? If I don't do surgery, how do I manage it? He said, I don't know how you manage it. He said, I send everybody to a surgeon. I never hear from them again. And then I asked how many patients he's had, and he said 30 patients in 30 years, so about one a year. So no advice, nothing at all. And then at the end, he gave me back the report, and Steve, my husband who went with me, said, don't you want to keep that for her paperwork, for her file? And he said, no, I don't want it. And I knew right then that he was writing me off, but he didn't have the actual scan. He said, I want to read the scan myself. So I need you to get that scan sent to me, which I don't know why he wasn't getting it. He's the doctor who ordered it. Why wasn't he getting that scan? So I had to go back to the scanning place and ask them to give him access to the scan. And he had said, call me in 2 weeks. But I knew when he wouldn't take my paperwork that he was ending the relationship. That was the big red flag, that he was ending it. So I called back in 2 weeks, and he won't take my calls. They don't have a nurse or medical assistant. They just have one receptionist. She doesn't answer the phone. You've got to call again, and then she usually answers it on the second ring or returns your call. Well, she did neither. She wouldn't answer my call. She wouldn't return it or answer it. And I'm thinking, what now? He didn't refer me to another doctor. He didn't refer me to a surgeon. He just wrote me off. And that happened last week when I'm navigating through my condition and having greater difficulty in walking outside. And I'm a walker. I used to walk miles a day, used to walk the dogs, and I've been unable to walk. So Steve and I did buy a rollator, which is really embarrassing. It's more than a cane. It's more than a cane. But at this point, walking outside, I don't just need a cane, I need to lean on Steve too. So if he wants to walk the two dogs, I can't walk with just a cane, I need to lean on him. So I bought a rollator, and we met the kids at the park, and I didn't take the rollator out, I was too embarrassed. So I struggled on this walk outside, and when I told our kids, the oldest one started pushing me towards surgery. If I can't walk with a cane, then I need to have surgery without knowing anything about my condition. Well, I feel like maybe there's something else going on. I've been watching several YouTube videos, and they said that, I mean, what changed? What changed where I could walk outside and now I can't? I mean, I did struggle before walking outside, but I could do it. I struggled, but I did it. But now it's, well, if it's level ground, I may be able to walk. Going downhill is a challenge. I can go uphill better than downhill. So I'm just thinking maybe something changed. And the doctor had asked me why would I change? He didn't understand why I would change. Well, he didn't consider the fall, but I also had Lyme disease about after we got Sammi, less than 2 years ago. I had Lyme disease and I got treated for it. But they never follow up to see that it's actually gone. They just told me if I take these antibiotics for whatever it was, 2 weeks, then I should be fine. And I followed the directions to a T because I did not want, I know Lyme disease causes neurological issues. So I told them I had Lyme. I did not tell them I had COVID, but I did have COVID in the last year and a half, December of, I think, 24 or so. I think it was 24. So COVID does sometimes cause long-term neurological issues. Could just be aging, could be the fall in October. I don't know what changed. He's the doctor. I thought he would tell me. He had no interest in a conversation. He just wrote me off. And so in addition to my cousin dying, being diagnosed, the devastating news of being diagnosed, and then this doctor just writing me off, and then my kids pushing for me to have a surgery that, if it's not the Chiari's, and even if it is, the surgery is not guaranteed that it will stop the symptoms. Some people, from what I've seen, there's such little information on YouTube or anywhere. Some people, their symptoms get worse. Some get better, some get worse, some stay the same, and there doesn't seem to be follow-up 5 or 10 years later. It's just right after the surgery. So I have no idea. And then there's something called a Dura patch. I don't know if everybody gets a Dura patch, but sometimes they're plastic patches. There's a doctor in Birmingham who does surgeries on children. And there was people in the audience, I think there were medical students or nursing students. They were all females. And somebody asked about the Dura patch, and sometimes doctors use your own skin so you don't have a foreign object in your body, but sometimes it's a plastic patch, and that may cause an infection or a reaction or something. So that's dangerous in itself. There's a lot of risks with this surgery, which is called decompression surgery. At my age, whatever they do back here, I don't even know because I'm not a doctor. I don't know anything about the medical field. You could end up like a bobblehead, however you say it, bobblehead, where you have to wear a neck brace the rest of your life because your head just bobbles. I'm sure that would give a lot of headaches and dizziness if that happened. There's so many issues at this age to have surgery. That's why I think 2 years ago when I went to the neurosurgeon and he told me I didn't have it, I believe he just didn't want me to ruin his statistics. He thought at my age, I'm 60 then, I'm 62 now, that I would probably stroke or have a heart attack or die on the table. And I think he didn't want me to ruin his stats, so he told me I didn't have it when I did have it. I don't know why. He laughed at me, belittled me, pushed me out the door. And I just thought, okay, I've been misdiagnosed, and I started the whole new rounds of doctors. My last thing was getting checked for autoimmune, rheumatologist. I was going to go to endocrinologist. Just frustration after frustration of dealing with this and not knowing what it is. When 2 years ago, many, many times in my life, I could have been diagnosed. When I was diagnosed with sleep apnea 8 years ago, that was a good chance to get diagnosed because when you have Chiari's, you do often, not always, often have sleep apnea, which I was diagnosed 8 years ago, only because I myself pushed for a sleep study. No doctor did. I've always been my own advocate. I've had to research it, and then people accuse me of looking for things. I'm like, well, the doctors they're not listening. They're not listening, and they're not looking. They come in the room, see white middle-aged women, and they say, I think you're anxious, and here's some anxiety pills. And I say, I don't want anxiety pills. I want to know what's wrong with me. And then they say I'm a difficult patient. So it was a bad week. It was a bad week. I found a couple of YouTube videos, not one woman is she's called momming with migraines. She doesn't have Chiari, she has migraines. Which, if you have Chiari's, you have a lot of migraines. You could have a lot of migraines. I have ocular migraines, not typical migraines, where I lose my vision for about 10 or 15 minutes. I've been getting them more frequently. I didn't have them for years and years, and then I've been having them. I don't know if it's from this stress or from what, or from this condition getting worse. But she has a lot of the same similarities, and she has a CSF leak. And I was thinking, well, that actually, and I saw another video with a doctor saying the CSF leak symptoms are similar to the Chiari symptoms. So I could actually have a leak. Maybe when I fell, I could have a little tear in my spinal column or my brain or somewhere that I could actually have a leak, but I don't know. So I need to find that. You do additional imaging with dye. So at this point, we found a doctor, but I have to wait 6 weeks for the appointment. Other doctors were a year out. There's not a lot of neurologists or neurosurgeons. It's very, very challenging to find them, that they will take new patients, that they take your insurance. It's extremely frustrating. I had gone to the dentist a couple weeks ago, and there was a new man working there to take your x-rays. And he said a friend of his is going to technical school. He was working in surgery at the hospital, and he had gotten so many certificates, so he was getting to the top level, and he wanted to be an assistant in surgery for either cardiology or neurology. And he said that neurologists are the most difficult doctors to work with, so he chose cardiology because they're better than neurology. And I was like, oh my God, that's great to know. I mean, I've been to one neurology and one neurosurgeon, and they were both pretty challenging just to talk to. And I'm not a demanding patient. I now bring all my notes and ask important questions. I mean, my biggest question is, how do I manage this? And they're not helping me with that question. I mean, if I can't have surgery or have a procedure or something, or physical therapy, there's no pills, there's no medicines, how to manage it. So he told me that, and then the new dental hygienist told me her son has a brain injury, and they moved down to Georgia 2 years ago for the doctors. And then she said, but there are no good neurologists. She said they have to go back up to, I think, Pennsylvania to have a doctor. So, and she told me, she said, you're going to have to go out of town. You're going to have to go up north somewhere to get a doctor. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Atlanta has major hospitals. We should have good doctors in Atlanta. But now I'm finding out maybe she's right, since it's been so challenging to find a doctor. If you know a doctor in Atlanta, or know a doctor, I would love to do telehealth. If they could order like MRIs, and they order that. That's what, at this point, I just want somebody to order an MRI with dye. And I don't know. So knowing that this is a chronic condition, and that I have to manage it, and that people don't see me as struggling. People look at me and think, oh, you're healthy. You're healthy. Most people don't think I even look like I'm 62. I have these 2 marks here because I got a new mask for my CPAP machine for my sleep apnea, and it's the exact same mask, and for some reason it was pinching me. I don't know why. It's never done that. But that's why I have those marks, and didn't have the best night's sleep because of that. But anyway, people look at me, don't think that, they don't think I'm struggling. I think now when I go outside, they see it more, because I really, really struggle. If I'm outside on a hill, I can't go down. I can't go downhill. So they see that. So at this point, I found that one channel, and then I found another one called Ribeye Rach, and she had multiple conditions. There's often comorbidities with these type of conditions, and she's changed to the carnivore diet, and that helped. And we had just given up red meat because at my physical, they told me my cholesterol was high and told me to give up red meat. But the dental hygienist has also said for my brain, her son eats a lot of red meat. She had also said the carnivore diet, but she's not a doctor. She's not a neurologist. But at this point, you're desperate to try anything. You're desperate to try anything when it's so hard to go outside and just walk. It's embarrassing. And yeah, at your age, people expect somebody to be in their 70s and 80s in white hair, glasses, white hair, and bent over to have these struggles. I've been very cognizant lately of people with mobility issues. Everywhere we go, I see them, and usually these people won't use a cane. Both men and women, they'll walk hunched over and slowly, and they won't use a cane. And I'm like, what is the big deal? What is the big deal to use a cane? So, how do I get out of my funk? Well, I bought these journals from Amazon. I bought like a carton of these, so I journal all my feelings, and that helps me organize everything, because you do have some brain fog with this, in addition to so many different doctors and so many different things, and all this new information is hard to keep up with. So I journal. I printed this coloring sheet randomly off our computer, and I'm coloring it, and a lot of bright colors, and sometimes that might hurt your eyes. Lights hurt my eyes. So the signs of the fluid leak are kind of similar to the signs of Chiari's in general, and I'm thinking, I don't know, I could have a fluid leak. Maybe it leaked when I fell, or got worse when I fell. I don't know, but they are the same symptoms, so it's hard to know. You would think you go to a neurologist, he would be able to help you. He could give you some ideas instead of you having to ask him. I mean, I know when we first met him, I said a comment about how women fall more often than men. He said he's never heard that. I'm like, every time I Google that, they always say that women fall more often than men. That's a common stat. But men, I think, die more often because they do more dangerous things. So even though men fall less often, they fall in more dangerous situations. So, oh, and then also I went on Amazon and ordered some books on Chiari's, because the library didn't seem to have any books. I wanted to read some online, and it's a little challenging to read online on iPads or phones. I have an easier time reading the actual book. So I ordered some books to learn more about it, and I also ordered an acupuncture mat, Migraine Jen, who is from Momming with Migraines. She has an acupuncture mat. I don't know if that's going to help at all. After I ordered it, I searched it and said it might be dangerous using it on your neck with Chiari's, because this is the dangerous area, but I could use it down here. I'm having difficulty sleeping, which is one of the side effects, because it affects your brain stem, so it affects your natural rhythm of sleeping. So I'm hoping that this mat will maybe help me sleep. I'm also getting away from electronics before bed, no TV or iPad or anything before bed. And I'm finding there's something on YouTube that was, I forget, it was like nerve stimulation reset or something. It said it was, one video said it's all over the YouTube, and I haven't seen any, but something about you're overstimulated, you need to reprogram your body, and a lot of it was just relaxing music or kind of annoying music to me, but I may start listening to that. You try anything when you're in chronic pain, and I don't know if I call it pain, but if I don't sleep, I'm dizzy the next day. And if I don't sleep and get tons of fluid, I'm always drinking water all day long. And one person said to add electrolytes, so we did buy Gatorade, and we also bought protein drinks. I'm not a big sweater. That's another thing. I barely ever sweat. But I did when I used this rollator. I did sweat. It's a lot of work to just push that, because I have no upper body strength. And I did walk Sammy next to me as I was pushing it the one day. Not today. But Steve and I are trying to get out in the sunshine, get that vitamin D, even though I do take a vitamin D pill. Get out in the sunshine, play with the dogs, do the relaxing things, and try not to make this my whole life, although it does control a big chunk of your life when it's challenging. When it's challenging to stand or walk. So check out our last video, which was on housing. Our tiny home's good for seniors. I really always wanted to move into a tiny home, but with my medical issues and the fact that they're usually far from hospitals, or usually buy land cheaply way out from hospitals, I don't see it a viable option for us anymore. But we're going to look at other housing options, and check out our other videos. Look in the description. I always put links in there. And until I see you again, take it easy.